the day after tomorrow. And of course, Kenyans also waiting to see what happens to the state of government in as far as naming of a cabinet is concerned. But there has also been conversations, and we'll be looking at that later on. We are speaking at a time that some learners are saying that they do not have access to any fees. The Supreme Court has pronounced itself that the CDF law, as currently stipulated, does not rhyme with the separation of powers. Mheshimiwa Yusuf Hassan, because you've managed CDF, or rather, you've been an MP while CDF was in force all your time, what are the direct impacts that you've seen? Because CS Ukur Yatani says that there will be no release of these funds for CDF?
Well, I'm surprised by the CS's pronouncement, because it is very clear that the Supreme Court declared the 2013 CDF Act as unconstitutional, but that does not affect the NGF CDF of 2015 and the amendments of 2022. So that is an issue that needs clarification, obviously. But I think the CDF is the most impactful development program in place that I know. It is a quick impact program that has a direct bearing on people at the constitutional level, and particularly for some of us who are elected from very poor, marginalized communities, the informal sectors of Kamkunji. Without the bursaries, thousands and thousands of needy children, bright and needy children, would not go to school. In this election, I meet a lot of single mothers, orphans, who come up to me at the street and say that my child has just finished university because of the CDF. The CDF has a big impact on the educational progress and development of the communities that come from areas that are like mine, and many others in the rest of the country. So I think even if the CDF didn't exist, it would have been invented to be able to provide and have the impact that it has. And I have no doubt that we are going to have the CDF in one way or another, in one form or another. But I think we should not penalize the CDF because of abuse or some misuse of it by some very small section of parliamentarians, if that is the case at all. I think in most cases, CDF has an impact. It makes a difference in the lives of ordinary people in many constituencies, including mine. And I think I have seen the results of that. We have built classrooms. We've built new schools. We have expanded the educational opportunities for our young people. And there's a very clear indicators that CDF is having an impact and changing the lives of ordinary people. And I don't see the reason why it is being politicized in this particular case, and why there's so much focus on a particular project that seems to be making such an impact.
Mheshimiwa, let's listen to the Chief Justice, because she spoke to the senators as they were retreating in Naivasha.
But here we're talking about law versus justice. What about social justice?
No, fine. I hear you. Let's first listen to what she said and why she believes, or rather the court believes, that CDF should not be operated in the manner it is currently.
The CDF offends the division of functions between the national and county governments to allow a CDF an instrumentality of the national government to undertake functions devolved to the counties. This clearly underscored the separation of power, and that delivery of service is devolved to the county and the constituency is subsumed within the county, just the same way as the ward is.
Supreme Court has made a pronouncement that CDF as it is illegal, and therefore we are not going to disburse funds, but we sought advice from the Attorney General for further direction, because I know it's a very sensitive matter. It's a matter that politicians, mainly the ones in the National Assembly, hold very dear. To some extent, it has also changed lives of the people, but also don't rule to a great extent. Also, there have been a lot of wastage in terms of the accounting and for resources. Whatever advice that we are going to get from the Attorney General is what we are going to go by. But as it is, it's been rendered illegal by the Supreme Court.
All right. Of course, Mheshimiwa Hassan says that the decision was on CDF Act of
2013, yes.
And there's the NG-CDF Act of 2015. But now, I don't know how you're reconciling that, because the Chief Justice is talking about separation of powers.
But the Chief Justice is mistaken in the sense that is she speaking about the 2013 Act, which has been declared unconstitutional, or is she preempting and already telling us what their decision is going to be regarding the CDF Act of 2015. And secondly, the minister, the cabinet secretary, is also mistaken in the sense that there is nowhere where the current act has been declared unlawful. If you look at the NG-CDF Act of 2015,
right,
we have addressed this issue of the role of the Member of Parliament.
Yes.
The Member of Parliament has been taken out of the daily operations and the supervision and the patronage. The Member of Parliament is no longer the patron of the CDF. The Member of Parliament purely deals with the oversight and the implementation of these projects. And then the Minister says there have been many leakages and wastage. Which development project, which fund related to any government department does not have wastage and leakage? And why is it not being dealt through the legal process that we have put into place? We have an auditor, we have an ombudsman. All these things can be dealt with rather than criminalizing the entire CDF program that has helped millions of Kenyans over the last 15 to 20 years.
I hear you. And Honorable Mutunga, so the CS is saying that they are waiting for guidance from the Attorney General on what should happen. Yet, the report from Parliamentary Budget Office says that 71% of the fund goes to assisting education matters. Part of it is to the bursary for learners that come from vulnerable communities. So, at the end of the day, these are people, real people that are suffering. For instance, in your constituency, what are you up to now? Because there's this uncertainty. And what do you think should happen at this point in time?
I clearly see no uncertainty because we are dealing with two laws. The law that was taken to court was CDF Act 2013. And that's the one that has moved from the lower court to the Supreme Court. And clearly, even members of Parliament saw problems with that law. And that is why in 2015, they came up with CDF Act 2015, whose regulations were developed the following year. And it is very, very, very clear. Everything within CDF is guided. There are no ambiguities. It is given even in proportion. The law states clearly that 5% of the CDF money goes to bursaries and supporting needy children. It clearly goes on to say that 5% goes to support the staff, 6% goes to emergencies. And these emergencies are clearly specified. Emergencies in schools or emergencies in security. So it specifies everything up to around 53%. So you're left with 47%, which also must go either to security or to education, infrastructural development. So everything is guided in CDF. There are no ambiguities. There is no possibility for the Member of Parliament to design anything and do it. All that a Member of Parliament does, or rather the benefit to the Member of Parliament, is that this fund, the money, is supposed to be used in his constituency. So he does oversight with a specific consideration that this is money to my people. And therefore they are sure that we shall get so much at the end of at the beginning of the year, and in this year we shall assist our people in 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the only money that the Member of Parliament is clear and aware, is very much aware of, is certain that will come to their constituency.
So for you don't see any need to amend anything? Even
there is absolutely nothing wrong with the CDF. In fact, if I may tell you, without any fear of contradiction, that is the best fund in the country. It is the most impactful, it is the most responsive fund to the people. Ask anyone, and you know how CDF has transformed. We are giving billions to counties, they are not having as much impact as we have when you give like 100 and 120 million to the constituencies. Like, you know, like around 1 billion, or like if I look at Meru, it's like 1 billion shillings to the constituency through CDF. And when you look at the county, it's around like 8 billion. If you look at the work done by CDF, 1 billion shillings from CDF, and work done by using 8 billion through the other channel, the two are not as, cannot be compared. So CDF, I'm not defending CDF because I'm a member of parliament. Okay. I have seen the impact of CDF, and I've seen the specificity in identifying the needy, because the members of parliament are the ones who are, you know, in contact with the people every day. They are calling you, like now, of course, there's the issue of hunger and, you know, lack of fees. People who are going hungry have no money to pay fees. Food is prime, food is number one. So they have to buy food. So they are asking us, when can we have some money to pay for the fees? Because whatever you have now, we are allocating to food. So it's a member of parliament who deals with these things. And the only possibility that a member of parliament has is to talk to the management of the CDF, which has a direct supervision from headquarters. There is an officer in the office in Tigania West who is looking at CDF, who is managing CDF, who is controlling and, you know, rationalizing what goes through. And therefore, I can only request, when are we able to issue bursaries? Until when CDF is released. So I don't see any relationship. And the CS Treasury was careful to add that the Attorney General's interpretation will be important in this case, which means he knows there is another law. He is not coming boldly to contradict the Chief Justice. Chief Justice needs to look at CDF Act 2015.
This morning there are
allow me to spread the
hundreds
question.
of children who are not going to school in my constituency because the parents simply do not have fees to take them to school. What's going to happen to those children? This exclusion is going to affect a lot of parents and a lot of children. And what CDF has been doing is to be able to include them into the educational process so that they continue their studies. I'm getting a lot of calls and requests from parents who are fearful of what their kids are going to do, sitting at home, becoming criminals, going out into the streets and so on.
All right. Honorable Elachi, you've been on record on this issue for more than once in this studio. But now, because you hear from the two fellow parliamentarians, your fellow parliamentarians, saying that there's no problem with NG CDF of 2015. But then again, the CS of Treasury says we need to be cautious. Let's wait for the Attorney General. The CJ has spoken that separation of powers, I mean, it has to be separate. But in the meantime, there are people who are suffering. For you, what would be the immediate solution? Because there's a whole term at risk for certain learners. What is the pragmatic thing to do now?
Well, first of all, the last time I was here, you remember, mine was very radical. Put a list of all the students in Kenya, take it to the Supreme Court. Ask them to deal with the children to go back to school. But anyway, let me not say that. I think we also keep on blaming the CJ. The CJ is reading the 2013 Act. And as a judge, she will not presume or assume. She takes what she read, and she realized at that time functions of water, functions of many other functions that were devolved functions were part of the Act then. And so she comes and she says it's unconstitutional. And as a judge, you will not presume what you have not seen. You cannot talk about what you have not seen. She has not seen the amended, which the amended is very clear. It completely takes back all the national functions that are within the national government, and that is where Parliament, the National Assembly, derives itself with its powers, that they are the ones who look at national functions, projects and everything, and they are the ones who also support the national government to ensure they also deal with the roles and what they have said they want to do. And so when I look at now the Act, it is so clear. These are national functions. There's no money that National Assembly is taking from NGC, from the devolved agreed monies or revenues. And therefore, I think we need to close this topic completely and now just bring the Act to the media house so that you also read fast, be able to understand now the new NGC, how it works, how it's functioning. The projects are more, in fact, as the CS is saying that, I realize he has the greatest role and more powers now, because everything goes under the Cabinet Secretary of Planning. It means it will be within Treasury. And so he's the one who will be looking at many of the issues, by the way, in terms of implementation. So let us first come and create awareness so that we also don't continue confusing Kenyans. We create that awareness with the new act. We go through it so that if anyone now has an issue, don't take us back now to CDF 2030. Please take us now to 2022.
Which is fine. And the essence of my question is because the CS has said that we cannot
That's why I'm saying we need
release
more
the
awareness.
money until we get advisory from the Attorney General.
Definitely, the Attorney General is going to tell him this is a new...
We don't know that.
No, I'm just saying, as an opinion, as somebody who has read the Act now, I mean, if I was the Attorney General, I will give him the guidelines and I'll say, look, it has moved, it is now a national function. The only thing CDF touches is only on national functions that are in the constitutional schedule for national government. There's nothing it touches in terms of issues of county governments or devolution. So no governor or nobody should come. And anyway, right now, if you want to create other funds, or if Treasury would wish now to bring development the way we are saying, can we look at how we have specified this act and start, in fact, for us going forward, we want now the government to bring an itemized budget. Bring an itemized budget saying, in the national government, we shall be able to do this and this, itemize it so that even Parliament is able to scrutinize properly. Because as the CS of Treasury is talking, him himself has never brought an itemized budget to Parliament. So how do people even know? That is why we can't even tell you we can save from this and pay your debt in this. Because it's not an itemized budget. But because in the scenario we are in, and everyone is calling upon debt, it is important for Treasury to start itemizing budgets. It is important for county governments to itemize their budgets per year so that you know the specific projects you'll be doing in your county, or you can sit down as three governors because they are cut-crossing projects that you can do together and save money, but sit and work together for the benefits of your counties within. So it is important, if Kenya wants to move, learn from this itemized fund and start looking at Kenya in that level.
All right. Senator, you used to work for charitable ways or engagements, and this reality now hits home, especially when he says that there are certain learners that are not able to report to school. What, in your view, should happen?
I think the reason, first of all, we have CDF is that we don't have real impactful county governments. Because the evolution was supposed to ensure that certain basic needs, including education, were taken care of. And as I've been listening, actually, there is a point that these legislators have, that the monies that are actually sent to the county for county government, projects or, running the county, are not that impactful as CDF. So, I mean, if we were in a situation where I would try to imagine, like, fast forward the next maybe 15 years, and we are able to hold all these county governments accountable to the part where we can even push for their own source revenue, that how much even is a county making in terms of, the economic activities around it. Then most of these issues will be sorted out, because in terms of education, we won't have a situation where you have parents saying we can't go to school because, we can't take our kids to school because we don't have school fees, because they don't have food, because, the nutrition programs that even I was running during my campaign would be, redundant, because now we will have a proper nutrition program that is actually, funded by county governments or the national government. So I think for me, I'm just wondering, if we were to push for the effectiveness of county governments and even national projects to be able to be accountable to the extent that we know that certain amount of money was spent on this project and we can see the impact, the economic impact, the socio-economic impact, possibly at one point we'll reach a place where bursaries are not needed. Because bursaries are there because we don't have, we are not running, either the county governments or the national projects effectively. And I believe the same way that we are addressing, because previously CDF was also used for health services. There were They were putting up, you know, dispensaries and things like that. And, you know, if you ask yourself why you have that fund,
right.
That fund exists because other funds are not effective. That fund exists because county governments are not effective. So for me, I know it is an ideal situation, but, you know, we need to reach a place where every single, you know, coin that comes from the exchequer can be accountable, and we can actually have an M&E. This is what we used to do when I was running an NGO. You have to have a monitoring and evaluation, because if last time you spent 200 million putting up, for instance, water sources, you know, boreholes and whatever,
okay.
And then you have 2 years later, you still have an issue with water, then, you know, there has to be a way to say that actually what we did is we wasted these funds. And going forward, we are not going to spend funds on ABCD. But we don't have real accountability. And one of the things actually that being in Senate that I would be pushing for is that, you know, as Senate, you're also, your role is oversight. Your role is representation, but most importantly, oversight on devolution.
Right.
And, you know, for you to send a senator who has actually been elected to go back to the county and play oversight on the projects that the county government is executing, they don't have any fund, you know. So you're technically telling this senator, somehow, either you sit in Nairobi and you audit the books that are being sent, you know, from the county, or you audit, you know, online through whatever resources you have. But to physically be able to transverse your county and say, indeed, there's this project of water or this project of water, the county government, you cannot be able to hold accountable.
Isn't that the work of the members of the county assembly?
The work of the Senate is oversight, and it's
not true. But what you're saying about visiting projects within a specific county, so isn't that the work of the MCA?
Maybe let me pose this question. So what is the work of a senator?
No, you are the senator, I'm not.
That's what I'm trying to explain. That the work of a senator is to ensure the devolution, and this is actually the real conversation that we need to have, is to ensure that devolution is effective, to ensure that down on the county, by the way, the senators actually should be aware and should be able to give you a very explicit, they should be able to tell you, this is what is happening in my county. This is how much they fund. This is what the governor is doing. This is what ABC, because even the point where a governor is being impeached, it comes back to the Senate. You, as the senator who has been elected in that particular county, should be able to say expressly that this is false, this is true, these are the projects that have gone, this is... And so the issue of the funds is that CDF must exist now because our counties and some of the national projects have not been effective enough to solve the issues that we are trying to address through CDF. And that's why you're seeing they're focusing on education. That's why you're seeing it's focusing on previously security, but previously they even had health, because health was it's still a big issue right now that actually, you know, even if CDF cannot cover it, we need to look into how you're going to be able to either hold the county governments accountable to extensively or create another fund to ensure that people are not being marginalized and are not able to access, you know, proper health care. So I think as much as we are always, and I've been wondering actually, one of the questions I asked is, who is this who wants CDF to go away? Who is this? Because, you know, every time you're defending CDF, I never get to understand who wants CDF to be shut down. Because it's definitely not the upper house. It's definitely not the National Assembly.
Just say that. Did you just go into that?
No, really, it's not the upper house. Because we are, as a Senate, we are also saying, as much as there's the CDF that is doing this and that, we are also now saying we need to effectively provide the oversight that we should. We need a Senate fund.
All right.
So you can be sure that it's not coming from the Senate.
Senator Roba, I hear you, and even as you make that case, but I think the judgment of the Supreme Court was quite clear that they're not faulting the good intentions of the law. It is about how it's being implemented. So I don't think there's an issue of wishing it away.
Which is okay, but there's an issue of wishing it away because there's always a lot of pushback on
Senator.
It appears there's some force somewhere trying to shut down CDF.
Okay, I don't know where that force is.
Yeah, to me, that is my assessment.
Just hold on. Senator Roba, I'm reading Article 96 of the Constitution. The Senate represents the counties and serves to protect the interests of the counties and their governments. The Senate participates in the lawmaking function of Parliament by considering, debating and approving bills concerning counties. The Senate determines the allocation of national revenue among counties as provided in Article 217 and exercises oversight over national revenue allocated to their county governments. the Senate participates in the oversight of state officers by considering and determining any resolution to remove the president or deputy president from office in accordance with Article 145. I'm just struggling to understand where you assign the Senator of Kisii the responsibility to go around the county inspecting projects.
The Senate plays oversight.
Just hold on. Work that should be done by the members of the county.
You just read it, that the Senate plays oversight in the funds.
The counties.
You read it there.
Yes.
Of the funds that are allocated to the counties. That is basically, you're playing oversight to devolution. You actually are supposed to ensure that this fund that is allocated to the counties is spent in a manner that it's supposed to be of the benefit of the people. Technically, when you really analyze that situation, you're playing oversight on the projects on the county level. You're ensuring that devolution in itself is having an impact to the people. And that is the reason why when you talk about impeachment of governors and things, when it squarely sits again in the upper house. So my issue is, and the issue that when I start trying to figure out who is this who's trying to shut down CDF, now when we come back to the Senate and say, for us to be able to have effective oversight for those funds that are being allocated to the counties, surely I should not be sitting somewhere in Nairobi and relying on books that are being sent to me.
Okay, all right.
Because then I'll be an accountant.
Allow me, gentlemen, to use the remaining minute with the Honorable Elachi here, who has been a senator and also now member of the National Assembly, but also Speaker of the County Assembly. Because my reading of the Article 185 of the Constitution, Legislative Authority of County Assemblies, I will read, is it 3? A county assembly, while respecting the principle of the separation of powers, may exercise oversight over the County Executive Committee and any other executive organs, and of course they have the legislative role. So what is that separation of powers between a senator of a county and an assembly of MCAs, from your experience?
Well, good practice first will be that the senator of any county should really understand what is happening in their counties. Because in the end of the day, even when they are coming to impeach the governor, you will have a responsibility and you'll have understood what happens, so that even when you are doing your determination in Senate, you've always followed. And I have always said that it is always important also for the senator, when the CIDP is being done, to be part of that process. Now, that does not mean you will usurp the powers of the county assembly members, who really mirror exactly the way Parliament, National Assembly works. But it means, in the end of the day, since the Senate also, the standing orders of the county assemblies allows him to go at once in a year to speak in the assembly, then it means at one point, and by the way, there's in the County Governments Act, there is a committee that the governor has to put in place that brings all their leaders, especially to look across what is going to happen within. So one of the things that I hope within this year, without having emotions of where we are giving senators money or what, I think it is time we give them money for oversight. And it can come also the same way NGC has worked and gotten some allocation from the national revenue. From the county, the allocation we are giving them, they can indeed remove money for oversight from there. And there's no need of having conflict on that, so that they are able to go and oversight, so that even when the report is coming from the Auditor General and the control of budget, you see, you're bringing this report to the Senate too late, when things have moved on. They have even moved, they are wondering what you're talking about. They are in another world, you are in another world as a senator. And by the way, when I was a speaker, I realized how senators will never know what happens in their counties. They are so far. I'm telling you, Sam. There is need to bring that, to bridge that gap. There is need, maybe in the County Governments Act, to have an amendment and see how now Senate comes in to really work closer to the counties. Because, give an example. So I'm a senator of my county, and my governor is independent. And the county assembly also, maybe with the senator, where the party the senator is in is minority. I'm getting that scenario. So if you don't have a way of bringing all of you together, you're going to have challenges in that county. And before you settle and work properly, 1 year, 2 years will have gone. So for me, I really, really would wish we come up with a way. The senator must be closer on what happens in there. That does not mean you are interfering. It means even before your reports go to the Auditor General, so that now you come again, now look at how we have just gone wrong. Let me just give you some before you show me this. Look at Roba, Senator Roba now.
Right.
Senator of Uasin Gishu. Honestly, in good ethics, you are going to audit your own financial reports. How? It's not right. So there's need
Conflict
of some joint agreements with both houses to come up with a way we are going to clean this, because monies are going to get lost.
No,
and
no,
if
I hear you, Honorable Elachi. Allow me, because we are out of time, but I just want to ask you this.
Yes.
How do you facilitate members of the National Assembly to oversight the government, the national government?
You see, the way we facilitate, it's not an issue of facilitation. You see, for us, we audit and monitor the national government. It's a daily, the way the law put it in terms of the National Assembly, it's different, because through the committees, I will call the CS. Every day I'm with him.
But the
senator cannot every day.
And the Senate receives reports of the control of budget in the Office of the Auditor General.
Yes, and look at me within a committee. Anytime I can summon my CS. But you cannot just summon your governor every time in the Senate.
Okay.
Yeah, they will start saying, oh, the senators have decided we are not going to do work. They will bring the politics, because they know there is a gap, there is a gray area. It was never provided for.
Okay, 30 seconds for Mheshimiwa Hassan. He's been...
Well, I think I disagree on that, in the sense that I think the Senate has its job cut for it. And that's why we have county assemblies, popularly elected county assemblies that oversight the governor and the affairs of the county government. And I see we're trying to do a duplication here by empowering the Senate to micromanage the affairs of the county and the assembly. And I think that should be avoided at any cost, given the fact also we simply cannot afford to be funding one institution to be doing the job of another institution that is already fully constitutionally and financially supported.
My apologies, because I have to close this conversation. No, you can't. Let's take a look at the feedback.
I think that one, Yusuf,
Senator,
I don't think it's not right.
Let's look at this.
Let's not go in those
Kenyans are saying. Bobo Tano again. MPs are hiding behind paying of school fees with CDF money, yet we all know it's seized with devolution, which led to county governments, which will automatically take care of the same. Well, that has to require legal... I mean...
Education is a national function.
As soon as possible. We've had 4 terms this year, and parents are really suffering. The judiciary ought to have given a timeline for grey areas to be streamlined rather than throwing out everything all of a sudden. Victor Kip, these legislators are barely 2 months in the office, and they were aware that CDF was abolished from the day they were campaigning. Those who are not okay with the decision should resign, and we elect those who will take what is offered. Well, the decision came on 8th of August. That's how you're saying. NGCDF is the best fund with clear structures. The impact is visible, unlike other funds, apart from few MPs who mismanage the fund. Today, visit any CDF office. You'll find students waiting for bursaries or students. Don't remove the fund. It's serving the purpose. Thank you all. I think that's where we'll begin from next time I meet all of you together. Very interesting conversation about the roles of the 2 houses of Parliament, what senators should do, what MCAs should do, but also what members of the National Assembly should do in oversighting the different governments, that is the 47 county governments and the 1 national government. My name is Sam Gituku. Thank you all. Honorable John Mutunga, Honorable Beatrice Elachi, Senator Gloria Roba, and Mheshimiwa Yusuf Hassan for making time for us. See you again some other time. Bye for now.